Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm doing a very out-of-date video. I did all the research for this and made all the slides a while ago, and I forgot to actually film the video, so we're doing it now. Better late than never, as they say, right? So anyway, this video is the top 10 picks in Guilds of Ravnica for Pauper Commander, in my opinion. So for those that don't know, Pauper Commander is a upcoming new format. Just like regular Commander, except for instead of a legendary creature as the general, you pick a uncommon or a common creature, and then the entire deck has to consist of commons. And for this list, I'm not going to consider reprints. I'm only going to consider new cards from Guilds of Ravnica, so let's get into it. Rhizome Lurcher is the first card that I chose for this, number 10 on the list. Let's read it, shall we? So 2 colorless, 1 black, and 1 green for a converted mana cost of 4. Is a creature fungus zombie with undergrowth, and it enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard, and is a 2/2. So the reason I picked this card is for any self-mill strategies in Pauper Commander, which I don't know of any, but this would fit right in if there were some. And it could become quite large and would be quite efficiently costed, in my opinion. Could also be used as a commander itself in a self-mill strategy if there are no previous self-mill strategies or self-mill strategy cards that could have been used as commanders. I don't really know, but this one would be a really good one because it would keep getting bigger as it kept getting played. You know, the first time maybe it's a 4/4, second time maybe it's a 7/7, third time maybe it's a 10/10, so I just thought it was a pretty solid pick. But the only unfortunate part is that in Pauper Commander you do have access to a lot of, how should I say, easy access graveyard hate. You want to say it like that? Or maybe easy access is not the right word, but it doesn't give you card disadvantage, so a lot of decks might be running cards like Bojuka Bog and Relic of Progenitus, because why not, right? And that could kind of completely hose you, which would be unfortunate. But anyway, number 9 is Hired Poisoner, so it's a 1/1 Death Touch for 1 black mana. As if there weren't enough of those already. But this one is a human assassin, which is kind of an upgrade from Typhoid Rats and Verika's Chosen Snake creature type. It's technically strictly worse than Ruthless Ripper, which has Morph as an extra little added effect, but you can't really get too many 1/1 Death Touches for 1. In Pauper Commander, of course, you can only have 1 of each card, Highlander style, and so in any deck that wants to have more copies of 1/1 Death Touches, I mean, this is a great card to add, right? So cards like decks like Blood Artist and Scavenger Drake, which really benefit off of creatures dying, would definitely want to include Hired Poisoner. Almost forgot the name of the card there. And number 8 on the list is Rosemane Centaur, 4/4 Vigilance with Convoke. So for 3 colorless, 1 green, and 1 white, you can either hard cast this thing, or you can use a combination of lands and creatures to help you cast it, or you can just use all creatures to cast it. And I think this is a significant upgrade from the Siege Worm, originally printed in the original Ravnica block, I believe, which is a 5/5 trample, but it's 7 mana. And I actually used to run this in one of my token strategy decks. Jade Major was the general, and I actually took it out because I found that too many times I was only able to tap 2 creatures, needed to keep the rest of mine open for attacking or blocking or whatever, and then I ended up paying 5 mana for a 5/5 trample, which really isn't all that good in green, whereas I think that the other card is, I forgot the name of the other one again, is quite a bit more efficiently costed, right? Because if you tap 2 creatures, then you're getting a 4/4 Vigilance for 3 mana, which is definitely above the curve. And I think it would fit quite nicely in a Selesnya Guild Mage deck, which is an elf wizard that can create Saprolings for 4 mana, so you'd have an abundance of tokens, and it's green-white, so I think definitely work well there. Somalia Shaper is the next card on this list. Is a 2/1 elf druid. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or enchantment from among them and put it into your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, as I always say, card advantage is not as easy to come by in Pauper Commander as it is in regular Commander. Especially in non-blue, non-black decks, right? So a card like this is definitely a nice option. You know, it's got a good creature type, and it can find another creature or an enchantment, so it's not just gonna hit a land, right? And some decks might prefer it. They're gonna actually get something they can use, right, as opposed to just another land later in the game. And yeah, the only downside though is that, of course, if your deck doesn't have a lot of creatures or enchantments, then the chances go up of it being not hitting, I guess you could say. So, you know, you might play it and reveal 4 cards, or look at 4 cards and then, you know, not actually get a trigger, which would kind of suck, and it would be just a 2/1 for 4 mana, which would be pretty underwhelming. At number 6 on the list is Notion Rain. So 1 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black for 3 converted mana cost is a sorcery, and you get to surveil 2 and then draw 2 cards. So you get to surveil first, see if you want to keep them or not, and then draw 2 after that. And then it deals 2 damage to you. And so, in my opinion, I have a very high opinion of this card. It really reminds me of Read the Bones, which is also a very highly regarded card. And this card is a sorcery, same as the other one, 3 mana. But you scry 2 instead of surveilling, and you know, surveilling is arguably better than scry because you get the triggers in the graveyard, maybe you can have card advantage from flashback stuff, whatnot, etc. And in Read the Bones, you lose 2 life instead of having it deal 2 damage to you. So I would think maybe having it deal damage to you would be better, because maybe you could like prevent that damage or something. Not 100% sure how I feel about that, or maybe it's like pretty much the same most of the time. But anyway, still a great card. Of course, if you're in blue-black, now you can run Notion Rain and Read the Bones instead of Read the Bones and Divination, which is always like an upgrade in my opinion. At number 5 is Healer's Hawk. It's a very basic looking card, right? It's very kind of vanilla looking. It's a 1/1 flying and lifelink for 1 mana. But if you really think about it, this is a lot. This is really kind of efficient for 1 mana. And nothing has been printed like this before, at common anyway. The closest that I could find when I searched on the Gatherer was Daggerdrome Imp, which is a 1/1 flying lifelink for 2 mana, and Sungrace Pegasus, which is a 1/2 flying lifelink for 2 mana in white, which is both pretty significantly worse than Healer's Hawk in my opinion. The closest thing I could find to compare this to was Vault Scourge, which is 1 colorless, 1 Phyrexian black mana, which can be paid with 2 life, and it's an artifact creature, so it's a little bit different. But this card was actually good enough to see play. I believe it saw play in some modern decks, so that's, I guess, kind of a bit of a testament to the power of Healer's Hawk. Although it's different, right? It's not an artifact creature and everything. So, but still really good. It would definitely have a spot in white weenie decks, and I think it also has a spot in Voltron decks. For example, Ascended Law Mage, right? You want to just stack all kinds of equipment and enchantments on it. But if it dies a few times, becomes too expensive where you can't cast it, or it gets locked down somehow, then you have your extra option of Healer's Hawk to put all your equipment and enchantments on top of it just being a really solid early game creature to play that's going to gain you some life. So, yeah, I'm very high regards for that card, for sure. Gateway Plaza is number 4. I chose as number 4 on this list. It is a gate land, comes into play tapped. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you pay 1 mana, and it can tap to add 1 mana of any color. Now, normally outside of Pauper Commander, this isn't really too overwhelming because your options for mana fixing are so great, but in Pauper Commander, of course, your options are a lot more limited, and this is basically just a better version of Rupture Spire. I mean, it's the exact same, except it's also a gate, right, which provides some advantages. Something else, too, that's interesting is they printed Rupture Spire at Uncommon in M19, and then they printed, what's it called? Gate Plaza? I keep forgetting the names of these cards. And then they printed this other card at Common in like, is it the very next set, I think? So that's a little bit strange. Just wanted to like note that. I'm not sure exactly why they did it, because it's like better than Rupture Spire, but it's Common. Like, not really sure what's up with that. But anyway, it can be found with Gatecreeper Vine, unlike Rupture Spire. It can be untapped with Greenside Watcher. It gives Garrison Sergeant double strike. So what's not to love? And it's just another piece, right, for fusion elemental decks, for example. They're always looking for more sources of color fixing, and this is definitely an excellent additional option. Or just decks that want to use spells of a bunch of different colors. This is always appreciated to have in Pauper Commander. At number 3 is Mephitic Vapors. So for 2 colorless and 1 black, it's a sorcery. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. And Surveil 2. What's not to love, right? That's sweet. I mean, the card that I end up comparing it to is Shrivel, And I know Shrivel's not too overwhelming, but in Pauper Commander, your options for board wipes are incredibly... Like, there are so few board wipes in Pauper Commander. It's ridiculous. Black does have the most, but even then, I mean, they only have a few. Like, Pestilence, Crypt Rats, Gangrenous Zombies, and if you want any more effects that kind of affect the whole board, you do have to resort to these sort of less powered options, I guess you could say. And I think Mephitic Vapors is just better than Shrivel. I have Shrivel in the sideboard of my mono black Pauper Commander deck, and I'm definitely, when I get around to it, I'm going to switch it out for Mephitic Vapors, because it's just like one extra colorless mana, and you get to surveil 2. Like, pretty extra, you know. And there's so many creatures with 1 toughness in Pauper Commander that, you know, you almost guaranteed to be killing something if there's at least a few people on the table. And at number 2, I have another blue-black card here, so... This is Whisper Agent, 1 colorless, and 2 hybrid mana, so 3 converted mana cost. It's a human rogue creature with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you get to surveil 1, and it's a 3/2. Did I say it's a 3/2? Maybe I said that already. But yeah, so it's just a really, really solid card, very efficiently costed, and the reason that I put it so high on this list is that it's especially true for blue-black, because generally speaking, at common, blue and black tend to have really underpowered creatures. Blue has some okay creatures with evasion, but when it comes to just kind of bigger creatures with good value and stuff, it tends to really lack, in my opinion. Compare this card to Hired Blade, which is a 3/2 flash for 3 mana and doesn't surveil 1, and I still consider Hired Blade to be a pretty decent card. I played it in drafts a lot, and I'm sure it would be good in Pauper Commander as well. And it can be found with Mystical Teachings, which is sweet. Mystical Teachings is blue-black, you know, this card is blue-black, so I forgot the name of the card again. Jeez, guys, I gotta get my shit together. So yeah, there's like good synergy there as well, and blue-black Pauper Commander decks. I'd assume most of them are going to run Mystical Teachings, because it's just such a good card, and good card advantage, and it's a tutor, it's a common tutor, which is, again, rare to come by, so. And yeah, another, I guess, testament to the power of this card is that I have a mono-blue Pauper Commander deck, and I'm actually running all 3 of the like pretty mediocre 4 mana 2/3 flash flying creatures, you know, because I like to keep my mana open so I can counterspell stuff. I like to play creatures with flash, and I'm running these things. I wish I could run the, oh, maybe it's Hired Poisoner, is that what it's called? Oh, I can't remember. But yeah, I would run that card if I could, if it didn't have the color identity of also being black. But yeah, this is just to give you an idea. Like, the creatures are, you know, pretty underpowered generally in blue and black. Whisper Agent. Oh, Hired Poisoner was the other card. I'm such an idiot. Yeah, Whisper Agent. Yeah, I tried to memorize these cards again. So I made this PowerPoint like a while ago, so kind of like forgot the names of the cards. But anyway, before we go into number 1, I just wanted to mention a few honorable mentions, or whatever you want to call them. Torch Courier is a 1/1 goblin for 1 mana with haste, and you can sacrifice it to give another target creature haste until end of turn. So, I mean, it's just another decent goblin. You can never really have enough decent goblins in Pauper Commander for goblin decks. It's aggressive, and it can also be used well in allied strategies, right? If you have a teammate and they play something big, you can sack it to give their thing haste, and you can use it in multiplayer as well, right? So you can say, hey, I'll give you creature haste if you don't attack me with that thing. You attack somebody else with it, kind of thing. So it can be used for politics a little bit in that way, which is pretty cool. Hunted Witness is a 1/1 for 1 human. When it dies, you create a 1/1 soldier creature token with lifelink. So very similar to Doom Traveler kind of thing. It gives you 2 sacrifice outlets, which is nice, right? So if you have something like sacrifice a creature to give you an effect, you can do it twice. And the 1/1 token has lifelink, which is always nice. And Parhelion Patrol is another pretty good card, I think, for Pauper Commander would be. It's 4 mana for a 2/3 flying vigilance with Mentor. So when it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. Again, good with allied strategies if you're playing 2-headed giant, Pauper Commander, or whatever. And just a really decently costed card, and if you power it up, it becomes a lot better. Of course, you can only give creatures +1/+1 counters if they're 0 or 1 power, and then once they become 2 power, you can't power them up anymore, so you're mostly going to be hitting 1/1s with this. But if you manage to power it up at all, then it would become, you know, a lot better, because it does have that evasion, and it has vigilance, which is sweet. And at the number 1 slot is the Lockett Cycle. Maybe a little bit unfair to use this cycle as as the #1 slot because it's not like a card, it's a cycle of cards, but I still thought that this would be sort of the most versatile, most used card going forward in all kinds of Pauper Commander decks, so I thought that it deserved #1. So basically it's a 3-mana artifact, it taps for 1 of 2 colors of mana, and you can pay 4 hybrid mana and sacrifice it and tap it to draw not 1, but 2 cards, which is sweet. I don't think there are any other mana rocks in Pauper Commander that actually give you card advantage. And you don't have access, unfortunately, to Hedron Archive in Pauper Commander, or Dreamstone Hedron, or any of those cards, because they are uncommon, unfortunately. So yeah, mana rock that actually gives you card advantage is sweet. The only other thing that I could find that kind of gives you card advantage is Seer's Lantern, but it just allows you to scry, which is like, pseudo card advantage, but it's not really, whereas this is actually like real card advantage. That's sweet, right? It's like 1 card for 2 cards. But only if you need it, and it's a mana rock otherwise. So I think it's really versatile in that sense. And it's even good enough to use its effect in decks that have a mana sink attached to their general. So like Mistmeadow Witch and like Sunhome Guild Mage would be a couple of examples. And what I mean by mana sink is, like, let's say for example, an activated ability that can be used more than once per turn. So you're always going to be needing more mana, right? And so like, for example, with Mind Stone, you might think, well, why would I sacrifice it to draw a card later in the game? Like, it becomes less effective because you're like, well, I kind of need the mana always. Like, I always need more mana, so I'm never going to hit that point where I have enough mana, and then I can just get rid of my Mind Stone for that extra card advantage, because that would usually be less advantageous to do. I mean, unless you're in a pinch, right? I'm not saying Mind Stone's bad in decks like that, but it's just less effective, whereas the Lockett Cycle, you would actually consider just cracking it just to get the cards, because you'd be like, well, maybe I can get 2 mana sources from it, right? Maybe I can get a mana source and an extra card. So, yeah, I've very high opinions of the Lockett Cycle. I think they're really sweet. And yeah, that's it for the top 10s. Before I wrap up this video, I just wanted to say a couple of extra things, and that is, I wanted to ask your opinion on the card Vicious Rumors. So I'm really not sure how I feel about it. I'm not sure how I feel about it in Pauper Commander, and I'm just not sure how I feel about it in general. It's 1 black mana for a sorcery, it deals 1 damage to each opponent discards a card, then puts the top card of their library into their graveyard, and you gain 1 life. And I almost feel like this card's almost it's like a bit of a trick, right? Because there's like so many effects on 1 card for 1 mana. So it's like, you think, oh, it must be good, but each effect is really underwhelming. I mean, top card of your opponent's library? Like 1 card? Like, I guess if you're playing mill, right? But you might even end up helping out your opponents, because what if they get something with flashback, or they actually need stuff in their graveyard, Undergrowth, which is in the same set and everything. And, it makes them discard, but like, what if they don't have any cards in hand later in the game? And at least it says each opponent, and each opponent gets dealt 1 damage as well, but you only do gain the 1 life. It's not like it's life gained equal to the life lost that way or anything like that, so really undecided about this card, and I just wanted to hear what your opinions are about it. And yeah, relating to Pauper Commander and just regular gameplay and drafts and whatnot. And also, my personal favorite card of the set is Capture Sphere, because it is a strictly better Mystic Restraints. So it's a 4 mana flash enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature, and the enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So it's just a Claustrophobia with flash, except it's 4 mana instead of 3, but it's 3 colorless and 1 blue, which is really nice, whereas Mystic Restraints is 2 blue mana. So in my opinion, it's better, and it's just easier to cast in general. And I really like these types of effects that have flash, because then you can save mana open for a counterspell, rather than having to sort of overcommit in a blue deck. It's really nice to have that. And I'm definitely including it in my, well, I already actually have one in my Azure Mage deck. I've already put it in. So yeah, that's about it. I'm very tired. It's 4 in the morning right now, maybe 4:30 now. So I'm probably going to get to bed after this. But yeah, let me know if there's anything that I missed in this video, if I said anything weird and wrong, since I'm really tired. And if you agreed with the order of the list that I sort of put everything in, if you thought that maybe there were some cards that I should have included that I didn't include, definitely let me know in the comments what you thought. Always looking forward to hear. And that is all for today. It has been Collectible Squash, and yeah, subscribe if you want to see more videos.